All right, so we're going to go to this next segment. This happened in the past week. So last week, when we were kicking off the show, we were talking all about the Last Supper, Olympics. Ooh, they're edgy. Oh, it's Dionysus. We're not really talking about Christians, but we make it look exactly like Christians, and we'll put a little kid at the table, and we'll have some dude with his ball sack right behind, and that's not a problem. It's definitely not desecrating Christianity, not at all, right? So that was the thing last week. No big deal. All right, so this week, there's just like a little boxing thing going on. It was like, I don't know, Serbia or someplace. Like that was the shooting team. That was pretty badass too, but we don't have time to talk about the Turkey assassin who went there. It just was like boom, boom, boom. This has to do with the boxing, and boxing is highly regulated. They got to go through tests and measurements and weigh-ins and things like that. And they're supposed to be, equal athletic ability. And that's how they define the different weight classes and all that good stuff. Right. So we have news about something that happened at the Olympics this week, and then we're going to hear a good opinion about that. But when we play that Rogan clip, LD, I don't know, is that going to get us whacked someplace because we're playing it? So I was just saying, turn off the stream for that place that will whack us for playing it. That's it. No big deal. All right. And then to cap it off, we're going to get into, in a few minutes, the Trump assassination studies section. The FBI is involved with that, and Christopher Wray, and we're going to get into all that research about the CFR, who might have had influence over the building and the people investigating the whole thing. Those people that want to take down our country, their hallmarks are all over it. So I don't know, that might be called deep state, and you might want to go back 3 weeks in this show to start learning about that. But this situation about the FBI gets more interesting because the FBI just paid out 2 people who formerly worked for them. They paid them millions of dollars because they got fired. And why'd they get fired? Because they said they would never let Trump become president. It was Lisa Page and I forget the Peter Strzok, right? So they got paid out. That came up in congressional questioning this past week, because don't you think it's strange that you're paying out, like, you guys obviously have a political agenda and you just rewarded those people who were doing those things. Instead of prosecuting them, they got rewarded. And that was brought up this past week. So we need to put that on the record. We're going to get that clip from Jimmy Dore because he did cover it, and he could probably make us laugh while we're learning about it. So with that, let's go now to the Olympics in France, Paris. Let's learn how they do it in France.
From the Telegraph, female boxer has nose broken by opponent who failed gender test during brutal 46-second fight. What I really love about this story is that I was checking the sports betting pages after this happened, and this literally happened just this morning because they're further ahead in Paris, and they really tried to avoid saying it was a male punching a female. I'll give you the quick version. Carini, female, fighting Imane or Imani, I don't know how to pronounce it. Female versus male. The fight starts, the male, boom, right in the face, and she immediately goes, nope, nope, and she goes back. She goes to her corner. The story, as I understand it, because the video doesn't show it, it clips it. She talks to her corner. They say, go back in and fight. She goes back in and then immediately stops, turns around and says, no way, I can't do this. She gave an interview where she basically said, I've never been hit so hard in my life. I'm clearly overpowered, and I'm going to be mature and say this fight is over. Congratulations to the male. Bravo on slugging that woman in a boxing match. Wow, you really proved how great you are at fighting by punching a woman in the face and winning whatever amount of money you're going to win. Apparently, Alex Stein, who's been advocating that people bet on the men in the sporting events, said that if Imane wins gold, he's going to get paid. But I got news for y'all. The betting odds. So I saw this yesterday, 2 days ago, because I was actually, I covered this story before the fight happened, and the betting odds were minus 150. That meant that if you bet $100, you'd win $66 on top. You'd get a total payout of 166. That ain't bad. But eventually the odds dropped down to minus 3,000 when sane, rational humans were like, I think the guy's going to win. And the guy won. Granted, it's a forfeit, so I don't know. Some people may have bet on forfeiture. That's also a good bet. Here's the story from Telegraph. Female boxer has nose broken by opponent who failed gender test. Oh, yeah? The controversial fight between Imane Khalif, the Algerian boxer who failed a sex test at last year's World Championships, and Italy's Angelique Carini has been abandoned after just 46 seconds after the Italian suffered a suspected broken nose. I do think I've got the video for you here. A couple of videos. Let's see if I can play the. Here's her statement. Here's a picture of her crying after she was beat. She was punched in the face by a man. Let's play this clip for you guys. I don't think her nose is broken. So there you can see that she got hit by the guy. Raises her fist. Boom. And then she's just done. She's like, no. Clobbered. Hearing her tell her story is really, really sad because she's saying, like, the training was incredibly difficult. She calls the match. She forfeits. I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted. I know you're disgusted, but I'm disgusted with her coach. Are you kidding me? You know what, man? Maybe it's all one big experiment. Like, did anybody think, and I want to stress this too, the Algerian boxer, I think this is important, is reportedly not even trans, okay? This is not a story of a trans woman boxing women, which is the typical thing. This is a story of a biological male who is in every way male, but got a female passport to compete in the Olympics as a woman. And that's the only distinction so far that I've seen reported. Maybe I'm wrong. But my understanding is this is not a trans woman in any traditional capacity. It's literally just a guy who says, I'm going to box as a woman. And they said, you got it. Good to go. Did Carini's coach really think that she's 6 inches shorter? Did he really think she was going to be able to box a man and win? Did he really think that? They say this fight had already denoted ferocious controversy with the International Olympic Committee under mounting pressure to explain how a woman could be allowed into a boxing ring unsure of the sex of the person she was facing. Unsure? Khalif was banned from competing in a gold medal bout in Delhi by the International Boxing Association, who said the fighter's elevated levels of testosterone failed to meet the eligibility criteria. And yet she was still permitted by the IOC to fight at these Olympics. And the difference in power was clear from the beginning, with the Italian taking a punch to the face and immediately walking to her corner to signal she would not carry on. Do we have this? Oh, yeah, that's right. The Italian prime minister has spoken out. Gracious in defeat. Continuing, Carini said the following about her controversial opponent: I wish her to carry on until the end and that she can be happy. I am someone who doesn't judge anyone. I am not here to give judgments. Khalif has spoken briefly herself, saying, I'm here for the gold. I fight everybody. Okay, so what had happened was, this Imane Khalif, Imane, whatever the name is, had undergone gender testing at the World Championships, and they were like, this is an XY chromosome individual and not a woman. So you cannot box women. But the Olympics were like, I don't know, it says F on the passport, so it's a she. I didn't have fear. I don't fear the ring. I don't fear taking the blows, but this time there's an end for everything. I wasn't able to finish the match. I felt a strong pain to my nose, and I said to myself, for the experience that I have and the maturity as a woman that I have, I hope my nation won't take it badly. I hope my dad won't take it badly, but I stopped. I said, stop for myself. It could have been the match of a lifetime, but I had to preserve my life as well in that moment. I want to express my utmost disdain for this woman. For saying, I wish her to carry on and that she can be happy. Dude, people come to me and they say, Tim, it's not her fault. Why are you... What do you mean? I hope her happiness and I hope she carries on. Why? So that she... Okay, look, man. It's not like I've actually done any gender testing on this stuff. I'm telling you about what the reports are. The reports are it's a male. It's a biological male. You keep saying she. There's no reporting to indicate this individual is transgender, and I mean that sincerely. And I'm the guy, I'm getting criticism from the right because I'm friends with Blair White. They're like, Blair White's trans, and we don't accept that. And I'm like, well, I like Blair. Blair's cool. Blair gets all my respect. She, her pronouns, the whole shebang, because I'm a liberal, I guess. This is a story about a biological male who is by no means transgender in any discernible way according to any reporting. It's literally just a male who says, I'm here for the gold, I'm going to fight everybody. And you're like, she hopes she does well. Okay, well then I'm glad you lose. I am glad that you lost, Karini, and I revel in your tears. Because if you support this, then this is what then I've got nothing to say. I will say it now, I will say it again, and I will say it tomorrow. To the people that are like, Tim, no, you can't. Listen.
The Joe Rogan Experience.
It's so different now than what I remember it being.
Well, the Olympics is a giant scam. There's two things going on simultaneously, okay? You have the best athletes in the world participating in their disciplines. That's happening. And then on top of that, you have enormous amounts of money being made, and none of it's going to the athletes. It is a giant scam. So the kind of people that are putting together that ridiculous opening ceremony, we got a bunch of drag queens and the Last Supper and all that.
Yeah, well, I didn't
shit.
understand that.
Nobody understands it because it's not made by athletes. It's not made by the Olympics. It's made by the people that are in charge of putting the Olympics out. So they're the ones who are reaping all the money and sucking all the cash out of these athletes.
Got it.
Not only do they do that, but then they'll go to places like Brazil. And so if it's going to be in Brazil, they build this fucking enormous place for it to participate in, all the different arenas where different people do their thing. And then after that, nothing. So, and then all the people there who are poor are like, hey, where the fuck did this money come from? And why didn't you just spend it on the community? Why did you do this? Why'd you do this for volleyball? Like, is volleyball that fucking important that you didn't use that money to help people?
Yeah, that's
bizarre.
That sucks.
The money they make is astronomical. The Olympics makes billions and billions of money in television revenue and advertising revenue, and they don't give any of it to the athletes.
So it just goes to the Olympic Committee?
They're just balling.
Wow.
Yeah, and these are the crazy people that are putting on the Last Supper with transsexuals. That's what they're doing.
Was it the Last Supper?
Yeah.
I saw it was something else.
Fuck, it was.
It said something some Greek
nonsense. They tried to say that after the fact. The lady who was playing Jesus literally said she was Olympic Jesus. She was joking around about being Olympic Jesus because she was in the same position Jesus was in the Last Supper. Yeah. She had the halo behind her head. They're being artsy. They're being fun, but it's not the place for it. You're pushing this weird agenda in this place where people are already getting fucked over, right? The whole Olympics is just people getting fucked over.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the best athletes in the world representing your country at the highest level, that humanly possible, for one, you should be getting compensated.
A shitload of money.
You know what I mean?
A shitload of money.
Getting compensated.
Yeah.
I think that there should be something that's more focused on the extravagance of this moment of the athletes waiting so long to be able to do this. And it should be more athlete focused for sure, and not so much like a show or
they let some wacky gay dude get a hold of the reins, and he decided to do this, and that's what it was. It's literally what it is. That's literally what it is. And he just decided to have a guy in a beard. But this is true. I mean, this is the actual person that put it together. That is who he is.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't even know that.
They know who the guy is. I mean, we don't need to name him, but he's just getting enough hate as it is. But the whole thing's fucking completely insane. But my point is the whole Olympics are insane. They're robbing people. They're robbing the athletes. No one is tuning in. There's not billions of people all over the world tuning in just to see a bunch of transsexuals pretend to be Jesus and the disciples. That's not why they're tuning in. They're tuning in to see who's going to win the 100-meter dash.
Yeah.
Who's going to win this? Who's going to win that? Who's going to win the sprints? Who's going to win whatever the fucking event is? Who's going to win boxing? That's what people are tuning in. And those people that have dedicated their entire lives to wrestle in the Olympic Games, they're not getting a fucking scratch of that.
That's so crazy.
It's nuts.
Oh, man. So
it's nuts.
And there's nothing to do about, nobody can do anything about that.
It's just pure chaos. Well, at one point in time, there was probably no money in the Olympics because there was no television, right?
Okay, yeah.
So at one point in time, the Olympics was just about the best athletes in the world competing against the other best athletes in the world. It was for national pride. You bring a gold medal, you have a fucking parade when you get.
Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Chicago, Grand Rapids, Duluth, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta, and Jacksonville, Florida. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. So this guy's the FBI guy who said we're going to stop Trump. He got his text messages got revealed. We're going to stop Trump. And then they lied to the FISA court 17 times so they could tap Trump's phone. Not only his phone, but everybody in his campaign's phone. Remember, it was him and Lisa Page, a former lawyer for the Bureau, they accused the Trump administration of violating their privacy after it provided explosive text to the news media. So this is real. So the Biden administration just okayed a payment of $1.2 million. So $1 million to that guy. And likely a similar payment to Lisa Page through a settlement of a likely. So the lawsuit, so they bring a lawsuit. The Justice Department settles lawsuit with former FBI officials targeted by Trump. No, Trump was targeted by them. And they got exposed because their text messages got exposed, showing that they were conspiring together to try to stop Donald Trump from becoming president. And now this guy sues the Justice Department, and in a case that he's going to lose. And so what does Joe Biden's Justice Department do? They settle and give him $1.2 million. Because they knew he was going to lose the case, but they wanted to take care of him. This is corruption. This is corruption. The Justice Department settled a lawsuit on Friday with two former FBI officials who had accused the Trump administration of violating their privacy by sharing their texts disparaging former President Donald J. Trump with the news media, according to court documents. As a part of the settlement, the government agreed to pay the former officials, Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, concluding at least some of the litigation. The FBI accusing Donald Trump of violating the FBI agent's privacy is like Harvey Weinstein accusing you of sexual harassment. The amount was not disclosed in court filings, but Mr. Strzok's law firm said he got $1.2 million. Their text incited a political firestorm after the Justice Department in 2017 invited reporters to review them at night before handing them over to Congress. Then a senior FBI counterintelligence agent who helped oversee the Bureau's investigation into the Trump campaign's possible ties to Russia in 2016, Mr. Strzok exchanged inflammatory messages with Ms. Page, a Bureau lawyer involved in it. Republicans seized on the text to try to discredit the investigation. The agreement is likely to anger Mr. Trump, who has railed against this pair for years and leveled baseless accusations that the investigation was a witch hunt. Well, we all know it was a witch hunt. The Russia collusion was a conspiracy theory concocted by the FBI, the CIA, and the Hillary Clinton campaign. Mr. Strzok drafted the memo opening the investigation, which was approved by his superiors. In 2019, Mr. Strzok and Mr. Page filed separate lawsuits. Mr. Strzok was suing the Justice Department that it violated his. Mr. Strzok is seeking to be reinstated for his job so he can retire with full benefits. The agreement was second time the Justice Department has reached settlement with the former Bureau officials. The 2018, the department fired Andrew McCabe as FBI director because he lied just hours before he was scheduled to retire. Under the settlement, McCabe was able to officially retire, receive his pension and other benefits, and collect about $200,000 in missed pension payments. In May, the Justice Department disclosed that it had reached a tentative settlement. So they're just giving out your money to these criminals. Republicans dismay. At the congressional hearing the next month, Representative Jim Jordan asked Attorney General Merrick Garland about the proposed settlement. So you go after the president and you get rewarded for doing so, according to the Justice Department, Mr. Jordan said. Mr. Garland responded, it's not a question of reward, it's a question of the government paying for violating the law. Can you look up what the text said? That guy's texts?
Peter Strzok.
Isn't it amazing that they don't include it in this article? This is the corrupt New York Times, who gave themselves awards. They got Pulitzer Prizes for reporting on Russiagate, a made-up fake conspiracy theory that they pushed. They got Pulitzer Prizes for reporting garbage. That's your New York Times. If I did that, just like Joe Rogan said about COVID, imagine if it was comedians and podcasters saying what CNN was saying, calling Pulitzer Prize winning medicine horse dewormer and saying it's poison. And saying that you should take an experimental medical treatment. And then people have all these adverse events. Imagine if it was podcasters doing that, but it wasn't. It was the corporate news saying that. No price to pay.
No, he won't. We'll stop it, Stroke texted back. Trump is never going to become president, right? Right. Page, who also worked on Mueller's step, responded. As Stroke responds, no, he won't. We'll stop it, Stroke texted back.
Isn't it amazing that they don't have that in that article? So can you read those? Can you read that again? What did the text say?
So what I have,
his name is Strzok.
Strzok. Okay, so Strzok. So this is the paragraph before. Strzok, who worked as a senior role on the Clinton email investigation before joining the staff on the special counsel, reportedly wrote to Page, an attorney, that the two would stop the president from being elected. They have Trump is not ever going to become president, right? Right. Page, who also worked on Mueller's staff, responded, no, he won't. We'll stop it. Stroke.
So that's a guy, an FBI guy, top FBI guy in charge of investigating the president, saying we're going to stop him from becoming president. That he just got paid $1.2 million because those texts got exposed. A guy who was leading the investigation.
It's like when you catch the criminal gets paid, you get punished. What do you think they did to the people who busted Peter Strzok and Lisa Page? Do you think they cut them millions of dollars for defending their country? Because there used to be a point in this country, there was a thing called treason. I know it hasn't been around for like many decades, because we're going to learn tonight about how Israel got their nuclear weapons, and that was going on in the 60s, and there'll be incidents in the 70s and 80s in that story. So it used to be a thing. It hasn't been prosecuted since Julius and Ethel Rosenberg leaked the nuclear secrets to the Soviet Union. I think that was the last time there was something like that. They were executed. There's some interesting aspects, but the fact that they're being paid millions of dollars because the Trump presidency like leaked their data or whatever, it's like I haven't seen anything like it in American history, not for a while. There were some things comparable decades ago, but this is like a new all-time low, I think, for this century. What did you think, Scott?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question about it. I mean, on the one hand, if the Department of Justice leaks personal information about you, then maybe you should be held accountable. But in this case, like if you just go, it's like the fruit of the poison tree, where you go back to the beginning and you notice that the whole thing, this is the type of thing that should be exposed, and it I've been saying this forever, even before you and I, met each other. It's like, I always feel like the only way we're going to get out of this is like whistleblowers need to come forward and just spill the beans. You know what I'm saying? And you know that all too well, how the system is designed to act adversarially towards whistleblowers. And we've seen that case after case over the last several years. And it's like, I feel like a really big change that could happen is really instantiate actual protective measures for whistleblowers, for people that come forward, that divulge information that can actually move towards some sort of accountability, regardless of what issue we're talking about.
Problem is, you have to be assertive to be a whistleblower.
Yeah. True.
Not a whole lot of people have the confidence to be assertive today. Let me show you this real quick. Black's Law Dictionary. Fruit and the tree, fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine. I mean, since Scott brought it up and I have Black's Law Dictionary just sitting here, I just thought maybe the rule of evidence derived from an illegal search, arrest, or interrogation is inadmissible because the evidence, the fruit, was tainted by the illegality, the poisonous tree. Now, if you're using a federal communication device to send those very personal political things that are antithetical to the oath you took to this country, I don't know. I mean, I don't know who was defending the government in that trial, but I would think that, they would have access to Black's Law Dictionary and they would be able to reverse engineer who was the victim in the situation. They chose Strzok and Page, apparently. The Justice Department did. So, I mean, again, it's just 10 feet thick of irony, but these are interesting times we live in, for sure. For sure. In fact, it's going to get a whole lot more interesting because I got this for you. Past 2 weeks, Olympics highlighted a whole bunch of culture that has been pushed by the globalists on a lot of countries, right? It's not just our country, it's a whole lot of countries. Now, the Olympics pushing very hard into the living rooms of Americans all these types of things that are very not usually associated with the Olympics, but suddenly are. Now, it's interesting because the torch and all this hoopla around the Olympic Games, as Joe Rogan was noticing, was like multi-billions of dollars of revenue that they get, but the athletes really get nothing. The athletes are like in a slavery situation, another recurring theme from these people who are progressing this liberal agenda. Liber means, as a noun, book, and as a verb, to free, in the language called Latin, which is not really spoken except a couple of obscure places in Switzerland at this point. Romanesque, go look it up. So, liber, free, freedom, you read and you become free, is antithetical to what the liberals actually do. So they have inverted it, almost like a Luciferian dark occultist type thing they're doing with our society. So now to get to that point about the Olympics and the merging and blending and forcing of this culture on its billions of viewers who tuned out right away and probably won't ever watch the Olympics again. I'm fine without it. Let's go to the internet. Let's do a little search about the Olympic logo and the origins of that logo and Hitler. And what you're going to see is we've got a menagerie here. We've got the 1936 Summer Games, which, you know, the guys who made the World Bank and Bank of International Settlements and stuff like that, the Anglo-American establishment, they're hanging out with Hitler in his box at this game. This game featured Jesse Owens, a black sprinter from America who won the gold medal. That was a big deal. Hitler was a little eugenics racist over there because he's a front for this Anglo-American establishment and its eugenics projects. He didn't like that. It became a big deal. But a lesser known fact about it, Hitler's Berlin Games helped to make this some of those emblems popular, like the rings, like the torch. Now, Trump, there was that thing that happened with the guys with the torches. There was like, you know, a bunch of feds who dressed up, and there was that whole thing where they associated Trump with like torches and stuff like that. These are the real Nazis, kid, and they did not lose the war. The people that funded the Nazis collected their Nazis after the war and brought them back to America and Britain. So Hitler helped to popularize not only the games, but the logos and the torch. The Nazi origins of the Olympic flame relay. Oh, did you guys know you're practicing Nazism for the past 2 weeks doing all this stuff? All you liberals that are really, you know, maybe you should punch yourselves. Maybe that would start the, you know, you're supposed to punch a Nazi, right? Maybe you guys just start punching yourselves and leave the rest of us out of it because the Olympic symbols have a dark Nazi connection, notes the Hindustan Times. What about the Nazi origins of the Olympic torch relay and 5 rings coming from the Anti-Olympics Archive? That's an interesting place. How about this one? Oh, Philadelphia Inquirer doesn't want us to see it, but we could see Olympic rings generate some controversy. That's what the controversy is about. But here we go. This is the Holocaust Encyclopedia, kids. The Nazi Olympics Berlin 1936 inauguration of the Olympic torch relay. France just made a big deal about the torch relay. They love some Nazi torch relay over there. In fact, no, I'm not going to go there. Nazi Olympics Berlin 1936 key facts, and they tell you all about it in the Holocaust Encyclopedia. You know, maybe the people who are so liberal should be liberal and go to the internet and start being liberal with those book readings that they haven't been doing, because you're celebrating something that to this day is sponsored and brought to you by the people who brought the Nazis to power in the first place back in the day. The Anglo-American establishment, the Atlantic Bloc. We're going to talk about names for them, and we got some good clips later. But that's just what I, you know, wanted to say about the hoopla in the Olympics. The athletes are slaves. Rogan was right. And go take how many number of James Bond movies deal with like Olympic athletes and things like that, where intelligence and rich cartel people are sponsoring the athletes. There's a lot of that in your film culture, which might also have some sort of overlap with those types of intelligence agencies. But that's not what we're here to learn tonight.
Very
We're here to
interesting. Have you
learn.
seen
Go ahead.
have you seen that footage from it's just a quick, I've seen it on Twitter a bunch, where it's like Hitler at the Olympics
Oh,
and it's sped up a little bit.
methed up.
But he's like rocking back and forth. Yeah.
It's not
And
sped up that much because if you
Yeah.
watch the people around them,
Yeah.
it's kind of normal motion that they got
But-
going on.
So you people may have seen it, but if you look really closely, there's another like at the end of that short little clip, he's got his gun out, right? And he's just like grinding his crotch with it. I'm like, that is the most methed up thing that you can possibly do. Like just scratching your dick with your gun. That is like
But again,
pure
maybe that's
methamphetamine right there.
Maybe that's some
So
sort of
funny.
Nazi death cult, skull and bones, secret society thing that he's got going on. And maybe that's something that goes on with couches for Yale Law School students.
I'll try and find that clip and tweet it out on my Twitter. If anybody hasn't seen it, it's hilarious.
Rogan also showed it. That was also
Oh,
a Rogan
did he?
clip where
Okay.
they were talking about it. He's like, Jamie, bring that up. And Hitler's just like doing his thing. I did want to mention before we get in and change topics into the Trump assassination studies section that we do have a special event coming up, and it is actively evolving. So the website is going to continue to change. But as of right now, we are having a conference. It is called Say No to the NWO. New World Order Agendas Exposed. This is the very independent producer summit. This is our 4th summit. I think the next one we're going to do productivity. On this particular summit on Saturday, September 7th, 2024 at noon, we're going to talk about the New World Order Agendas Exposed, but it's going to come from people that you're familiar with. And we're going to talk about specifically how in their lives they are working to progress an agenda that is antithetical to the New World Order. It's about decentralization. It's about independent self-reliance. It's about, adulting up in these very tumultuous times in civilization and being responsible, being assertive, being a producer and not just a consumer of all the propaganda. We have to produce. And what are we going to produce? Antithetical to the propaganda. We have to educate ourselves. What does that process look like? How do we actually capture ideas and bring them out? And how do we get through production? And how do we do all the other things that we have to do that are kind of like the little differences between people on this side of the screen and people on your side of the screen? And these VIP conferences are meant to close that gap, because once upon a time, each and every one of these speakers that are going to be at the conference, they were a spectator too. They were on the other side of the screen. And then something happened. Something changed. They started doing things. They broke out. I think breaking out's for everybody. I think we need more freedom-minded, objective morality, integrity-based producers. So it's 33 days away. That's accidental. But go ahead and register now, because we need to know certain things like how many people are coming to the party. Right. So if you register now, you can go to universityofreason.com/autonomy-vip-summit-4 is the URL. You can see it there on screen. It's at the top. You can pinch on your phone and zoom in if you need to. All these things are easier if you're a Grand Theft World community member, because then it just comes in an email. You click the link and you get into the list. So we can have the summit, and it's going to be a wonderful time. As I said, it's the 4th summit. Scott, you've been at a summit before, and you're going to be at this one. Tell the audience what it's like for someone in your position. Were you all nerved up, or was it easy peasy? I mean,
No,
I try to make it easy so you guys don't have to do anything to prepare. But how was it when you showed up from your side?
I mean, I love situations like that where I'm just talking about what I'm passionate about and what I'm currently working on, and it's just like effortless, you know what I mean? And it's something I'm very fired up about too, just these last few years, just entrepreneurship and just finding new and innovative ways to solve problems. And it's just, I'm just so grateful to be in this point in my life. It's like when you were mentioning that, it just really brought back, like, before I even started a podcast, before I ever hit the record button, it was shortly after that show, The Union of the Unwanted, came out, and I was just so blown away. Like, watching, I loved it every week because it was like this panel of all my favorite podcasters that I listened to all the time. You know what I mean? It was like just this thing that just seemed so like just magnificent, right? And then fast forward like 6 months, and like Ricky Barandis like invited us on to the show, and we were like on it. And that was like one of the most amazing experiences of my life, because I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, how did this happen? And so, yeah, that transition of being just an audience member to being like in the mix, that was a very, very inspiring time in my life. That was like 2020. That was back in the Truthzilla days, and just kind of, and then growing that show was just like a really amazing experience. And, things have changed and shifted so much since then. And pretty much all of my skill sets, like in terms of media production, was a result of just learning how to do things on the fly. I didn't know how to edit videos or audio or anything. And now I'm just like, now I've done it professionally in multiple occasions. So it's like, it's really crazy how just that action of choosing to hit the record button, just every single thing in my life now is a result of that. And so,
but it's also a result of you just changing, like, in order to do what you've been doing, you had to start meeting some other people who knew some stuff you didn't know yet. Exactly. Right. So like when you say Ricky Varandas, he lives like an hour from here. I see him maybe once a year. He comes down for like birthday party or something when we're having a gig out back. It's so cool to see other people who are like doing the same thing and like comparing techniques and how are you uploading or using content safe or using Clip Genie, trying to figure out like how to help each other because everyone else is just watching. So like, the like when everyone watches, you could call anybody and be like, hey, what'd you think of whatever show? But when you're a producer, the people with the useful information that we need to close those gaps, they're few and far between. There's only a couple people I know within driving distance that do anything similar where I could be like, hey, I'm having a problem with OBS. Can you help me work that out? Yeah. Right. Yeah. So you have to know other producers at that point in order to hone your craft and to grow and to be stronger. And that just expands your network, which is the whole point. You got to meet the people that have those answers to the questions that you have so you can go over those challenges and meet your goals. Right. Which also, there was something I watched the other day. That really struck me as it was just so obvious, but it was like an hour and 41 minutes of obvious. It was over here on the Survival Podcast, Jack Spirko's YouTube page. Now, again, I'm not logged in here. Otherwise, there'd already be a thumbs up. So Jack started podcasting like 2010, if I remember correctly. And he's had a long career. He's a homesteader. I really like how he thinks. Right. I would say he's a really intelligent guy, but that's a result of how he thinks, how he observes, how he processes, and how he studiously sets aside nonsense and unreality and won't even fucking entertain them. Right. So that's the attitude he brings. He's very candid. He does Outback with Jack. He does Miyagi Mornings. There's a whole bunch of different styles to because he's daily putting out content. Right. So it's not always the same thing. So I'm going to show you something. I don't want you to think it's indicative of his whole operation, but this is something that I found to be remarkable. Now, I'd play you a sample. The whole thing is something you need to listen to. So you can just write it down or I'm going to speak it into the record. The most valuable skill they take from us as children. So the title got me to click because I was like, what is it? What is it? I have ideas, but I want to know what Jack thinks, right? That's why people tune in. So in going through it, he's unfolding a big idea. Basically, what you're getting is a above college level explanation of something he has a lot of experience with. And I have experience in that area. My wife has experience in that area. So after I studiously listened to this, not even on like 1.5 speed, I listened to the whole thing and tried to understand everything that he was saying and checking against how I understand things. I then got my wife sequestered on the back porch. I said, I want you to listen to this. And I didn't know how far she was going to make it into it. She listened to the whole thing too. She agreed exactly. Like 99% of what he says, like you agree. And I don't always agree with people. In this case, he was making a point that I think applies to everybody in this audience. So again, I'm going to put it on screen. Just going to say, just listen to that video. Listen to this video with Jack explaining the thing that we all had and we all owned and we all used and we all benefited from. And then linguistically, they beat it out of us through the school system, through the media, through people who believe the school system and media. It gets really beaten out of us. And if we want freedom in this country, that is a skill set that everybody needs to know, understand, have experience in, and be able to pass it on to other people. Okay. So I'm just going to put that out there, create a little mystery. You can go check it out if you're interested, but you're in this audience, you're interested, and that's something that's really helpful and efficacious. Let's put it that way. All right. Last but not least, before we go on to this whole Trump assassination studies section, upcoming in September, we have Autonomy Season 12. It says 12 weeks. There's 3 bonus weeks. It's lifetime enrollment. There's all these good things. It just happens to build out that precise skill set that Jack talks about in that video. And the way he talked about it and described it is a way that instead of me trying to emulate what he said, you should just go hear it from him. And then when you say, I'm interested, this is the place where we've been training people for 5 years in the ethical, objective morality use of that skill set. We are unique on this planet insofar as nobody else teaches this topic like this. These are life management skills. These are life flourishing skills. These are how to close the gap between you and any problem, challenge, or opportunity that is in front of you. It's a skeleton key for success and a Swiss Army knife for life. So if you're interested and you are actively trying to outgrow your status quo, then go to getautonomy.info, go ahead into the process. One of Jack's points in that video is you have to make it easy for people to say no. And we do, because we're not pressuring anybody. But it feels like if we didn't tell you about this offer and what's going on with people outgrowing the status quo, learning how to solve problems, bringing methods as like the cheat codes, or as you guys would say, what are the codes we use in video games? Are they cheat codes?
Yeah, cheat codes. Yeah.
Cheat codes. Yeah. I mean, it's you press these buttons, things work. And you don't have to go the long way around. You don't have to recreate the wheel. So to have like the cheat codes for the game of life is something that I got for myself like 30 years ago. So in order to outgrow these problems that hold us back, especially the one where you don't earn enough money for the time you're putting into something, these are resolvable problems. These resolvable problems you're not going to get from like free videos on YouTube because you're lacking the network and community that actually allows you to own those skills with experience and explore those skills with opportunity. So that's the difference. You can watch stuff for free on the internet and have fun with that. But if you actually want to get someplace, we do it twice a year. You do it with a group of people. It's free, voluntary association. Nothing's mandatory to do. You can, there's complete transparency into the process. We have made the ramp as easy for you as it gets, but there's still a little work on your part as far as you have to click, read, consider, talk to some people, because it's not something you can just click and buy online. It's a community, it's a network, and you're going to talk to, if you're interested, someone who's recently been through and been there and done that, because I think they're the best qualified to answer your questions, to demystify the process. And I know when you remove people's doubts, they move forward naturally. So there's no pushing, persuading, convincing, or conniving whatsoever in our look at the opportunity process. So the same way we do it is the same way we teach it. That's why it works like that.
Totally. And I can't stress that the community aspect enough in it. Like many of you know, I was a season 8 graduate, completed Autonomy season 8. And it's not one-sided. It's not like just Rich lecturing to you. I mean, that's not at all what it is. It's so interactive, and it's a tool. It's literally a tool. Like, I don't want to spill too many beans, but there's this thing called a hot seat, where it's like, if you have a problem, or let's say you have a business, let's say you have some sort of media production endeavor or whatever it is, you, during the Q&A, you get the opportunity to bring that to the group and be like, hey, this is what I'm struggling with. This is where I'm running into a brick wall here. Like, what are some suggestions? And then you've got the whole community, and of course, Rich's expertise to come help you problem solve or work through whatever it is you're working on. And it's like this open invitation for you to kind of work your problems out in real time, if you have the courage to do it. I mean, that's part of half the struggle, is people having the courage. And I was in the hot seat all the time, like, oh crap, this is what I got going on. What do you guys think? Things like that. And then of course the lifetime enrollment. So you can go back and take it over and over and over and over and just stay engaged with the community. I haven't been the best at that just because I've been so busy on these projects. It's like I took this information and ran with it. You know what I mean?
But it's there for when you get stuck.
Exactly.
It's not supposed to be like miss out on your opportunity to go do the things. It's like you do these things so you can access the opportunity. And then if you get stuck, you come back and get your questions answered. You get unstuck.
I have gone back and watched certain lectures. I'm like, oh crap, I need a refresher on this. Like, as soon as I got involved with Unjected, and some of it was like geared towards marketing, I'm like, well, I need to go watch, this particular episode, that particular lecture, that particular lecture. And so, it's just a reoccurring, just ongoing tool that has really helped me out. So yeah.
And then what happened after you got your questions answered? Then you popped out Clip Genie, in addition to your other stable of projects. So
yeah.
Not everyone's going to have a Clip Genie, but Clip Genie needs people to work for them and do sales and marketing and all this other stuff, right? Yes. So there's opportunity everywhere when you start taking action with the idea of entrepreneurism, which is entrepreneurs create opportunities out of thin air. they see this and this, and they say, well, what about this? Could we do this? And then connect those two things together. And right, this is how the world works. This is like the difference between being a producer and being on that side of the screen, is that missing mentality that should have been developed further, but they snuffed it out through schooling. Well, you can be easily reignited. It's like the leftover coals from the fire from the night before. Like you had a campfire, all the wood's gone, but if you move those coals around, you can make fire again. And I teach this course because I have the ability. If you get into the course and you show up for yourself, anyone can learn these skills. Anyone can apply these skills to their life with consistency, right? I was thinking about it earlier today, and I was trying to think about, like, because I'm trying to explain something that you don't have, that if you did have, it makes a difference. So I have to compare it to something like this. What if you did not have the skills to do math, addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division? What if you didn't have those skills? You don't speak that language. It's all Greek to you. But you, as a person who knows math, knows what an advantage it is, because people can lie to you with numbers and stuff like that, right? If you don't know how the numbers work, they could lie to you, like a used car salesman, right? Which Jack also talks about. And it's hilarious how he describes. He has a really good process. You should listen to that just to know how to buy a car and not get ripped off, right? So in that process, it's very important to base things in reality. And if you don't have the scrutiny to be like literate and then compare the literacy to the reality, you got 2 points of failure right there, and you're going to be taken advantage of. To end that recurring loop of being taken advantage of, you don't have to just be numerate and literate. You have to be able to process the information and manage the energy flow in conversations and community connections and networks. It's a whole skill set. It's a complicated skill set made out of simple skills. And you learn the simple skills, you can do the complex things. So that's the opportunity. It's coming up in September, season 12. We're going to accept probably only 100 students, because otherwise I can't remember everyone's name. This is not a group that is like, we're, overloading it and you get no personal connection. It's where we underload it and you get maximum personal connection. There's several Q&As during the week. There's all sorts of opportunities. You could have masterminds with your other fellow students of the season. That's what Scott was referring to, where you can be in the hot seat and get your questions answered and get improvements on your project. It's lots and lots and lots of breaths of fresh air. That's my opportunity to show you. Get autonomy.info. You're going to learn a whole bunch of other cool stuff that comes along with it. But just think of it as like a starting point. It's not the end of anything. It's really the beginning of your journey of self-reliance, self-education, and overcoming obstacles autonomously. And then when you get stuck, you've got friends to call on to help you get unstuck. So there's a lot to learn. Go to getautonomy.info. Check it out.
Everyone's doing some kind of self-help these days, and you can find a million self-help courses out there. Most other courses out there are hosting lectures, they're hosting videos, they're maybe even doing Q&As, and these are great starting points to encourage learning. But at Autonomy, we believe that hands-on practice is the best way to really lock in what we're learning. There's no better way to gain confidence and mastery than through action. After each lecture, we practice the concepts we've learned with other students, giving and receiving feedback in a non-judgmental environment. The result is mastery of concepts like entrepreneurship, ethical sales, and self-reliance in an environment that directly translates to the real world. Plus, you make connections with other like-minded individuals who are learning right alongside you, and you have a lifetime membership in the community. The Autonomy course with Richard Grove equips you with confidence, competence, and courage in a world filled with confusion and noise. You can learn more at getautonomy.info. We'll see you there.
What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, and this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man.